What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'm going to talk about some key levels to watch for heading into next week, why we have some catalysts that could be affecting the overall market. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of the stock, or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of Nvidia stock. You're also going to qualify for a 3.6% APY base rate plus a 4.5% APY extra for 3 months, making it a total of an 8.1% APY. The offer ends very soon, so please check out my link down below to sign up or use this QR code. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So, looking at the markets right now, we're on a big downtrend on SPY. As you can tell, we're just making lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, and lower lows over and over and over again. And this pattern suggests that there could be some more downside risk as time goes on. But for the short term, we might try to bounce a bit more before we see a potential pivot if we reject off some key levels. Now, heading into next week, I just want to say that Monday is going to be very quiet with minor earnings. For Tuesday, we have lots of Chinese stocks announcing earnings such as NIO and Alibaba. We also have some retail such as Kohl's and Best Buy. And then we have Dell after the market closes. Then we have John Deere and a few more before market open on Wednesday. Then we have Thanksgiving Thursday and pretty much nothing else left for the week. So it's going to be a very short trading week. The market's going to be closed for Thursday as Thanksgiving is coming up for the American markets. Heading into next week, there's not really much data coming out for Monday. We just have some minor manufacturing data alongside some bill auctions. On Tuesday, I believe we have the PPI data coming up. That is for the month of September, so it's old data. And there's not really much else. It's quite quiet. Wednesday is also going to be a bit more quiet. We have some jobless claims data coming out. And then besides that, it's going to be more quiet. We also have the Fed beige book, but that's not that impactful. Thursday, the stock market's going to be closed. And then for Friday, we essentially just have the Fed balance sheet, which is still quite minor. I think things get very serious starting the week after when we start December. So we're going to see how well the market holds up. But for now, it's going to be a quiet week. After so much volatility, we might see more choppiness, more sideways price action. Right now, extreme fear makes up the majority of sentiment, which gives us a reason to think the market could try to bounce. SPY is also, and the S&P 500 is also near the 125 daily moving average, which is a sign that we are getting close to extreme fear. The put to call option ratio is flying, so if there's too many puts over calls, that could be a sign the market wants to bounce, and the VIX is also at fear. So what do I think the market will do? Well, I do think we could try to go a little bit higher, but here's the thing that happens. We basically pump to resistance where this upper trend line is. Then SPY tends to reject, and it likes to touch the lower trend line right here. Then we touch the upper trend line, then we reject and go back down to the lower trend line, then we bounce again. If we touch the upper trend line, there's going to be a risk of us turning right back down and seeing another rejection on the SPY chart. So I think this is the most likely possibility. If we break the 672 area, though, we could remain more bullish. If we lose the 650, we could turn more bearish and continue to make new lows. I think it's going to be a mix of both. I think we try to go a little higher next week, retesting this upper trend line, but we could still reject and make new lows if we get a rejection. So watch for that on SPY. On the QQQ, it's essentially the same thing. I think that there is a risk of us basically trying to go a little bit higher before potentially getting another rejection. And we're going to be watching that very, very closely. Now, one thing we could do is actually kind of redraw this trend line. I think that my trend line got adjusted on the different charts. And I think that we're essentially looking for sort of like a downtrend that kind of looks like this, depending on how you want to draw things out. But overall, there is that downside risk looking at this, whether we look at the lines like this or if we adjust them. But overall, the downside risk is still there for the QQQ. So if we're bearish, you want to see the QQQ basically lose 580, but it does not look like we're going to do that yet. And might try to bounce a bit for 597 to the low 600s. And then once we get close to this upper trend line, we could reject and then continue to fall. There is still that risk of downside. When you remove all of our drawings, you could see that there's a head and shoulders on the QQQ, and there are some gaps to fill. So on the daily time frame, for example, we have a gap over here. There's a gap over here to fill. There's also this resistance becoming support around 580. Then we have 575 and another gap to fill back down around 566. So could we bounce a bit? Yeah, we could try to bounce for 597 to 600, but then we could reject and continue to fall back down towards 580 or below. On the IWM, if we break 240, we could try to turn a little bit more bullish, but I don't really lean in that direction. I think we try to get close to like 538 to 540. Then we're going to see if we reject again. There's still a gap to fill down here at 226. So look for a small bounce next week for closer to 240. Then we'll see if we reject on the Russell 2000. On ES, we have a head and shoulders like pattern, but one thing that's good is that it's holding support not too far from the October lows, so it could attempt to go a little bit higher before it potentially rejects. We have this support at 6650 and resistance at 6700. We could bounce a little bit for closer to 6700, then we'll see if we turn back down, so watch that very closely. On NQ, the same thing is going on. We have like a double top rejection. We have resistance at 24,570 and also at 24,800 and support down here. We could try to go for 24,570 or above on NQ before we potentially turn back down, so be very careful with that. Bitcoin's also trying to bounce. I see a test of 87,650 or even a little bit above that, and then we'll see if we turn back down. On Tesla, we're also on a bit of a downtrend, making lower highs and lower lows. And I think there's some weakness on Tesla stock. So looking at this channel, we're still technically on a downtrend. However, there may be an attempt to bounce on Tesla heading into next week. It might try to go for the low 400s again to retest this trend line before it falls back down. But ultimately, I still think that 375 and 368 could be tested to fill the gap down here on Tesla. So a pump and dump could be coming. Nvidia has a very similar setup. It's on a bit of a downtrend. We tried to bounce a little bit only to reject on Nvidia, so it's making new lows. Because of the double bottom, it could try to bounce a bit for the low 184 area before it rejects and continues to fall back down to 175. Apple, however, is looking a bit more bullish, favoring 272.5 or above for next week. Palantir could try to bounce a little bit, so we could be looking for 160 or so. AMD could be looking for basically 210 to 212 for a temporary bounce before it rejects. Coinbase could be looking for essentially 250, and we'll see if it turns back down from there. So there's some temporary upside. Amazon could be looking for essentially 225, and we'll see how it goes from there. Meta could push for basically the low 600s, and we'll see if it turns, but this may temporarily try to push. Google is looking a bit more bullish, favoring 305 to 308, and we'll see if we turn back down, but there is some upside potential. And finally, Microsoft is down here at support. We have 470 to 468 as the main support zone. We'll see if it bounces off 468 to temporarily push for like 480. Then we'll see if it turns back down from there. Last but not least, the VIX is dipping right here. It looks like it could dip a bit more for like 21.4 to 20. Then we'll see if we bounce. But overall, what I think will happen is the market may attempt to go a little bit higher. SPY and the QQQ have some potential. But once we touch these upper trend lines, we could still see another rejection as the overall trend on SPY and the QQQ still remain more bearish, right? We're still bearish. We have not officially gotten a big breakout yet. There's also a good chance the market will see a big bounce eventually. I'm just not sure if it's going to happen as soon as next month or if it takes a little bit longer. But eventually there's going to be a massive rally again, and this is simply just a healthy pullback. I don't consider this a crash. The market's just very uncertain about the Fed. And hopefully once we get FOMC in about, I think, a little bit less than 3 weeks from now, that will give us more insights about what's about to happen. So be patient, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. Please enjoy your guys' weekends. I want to make this video short, sweet, and simple, and I'll be back very soon with another update for tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and peace out.